Hi everyone, welcome back to English with Yakshi, and today we are going to understand an important aspect, which is how to manage your time in the IELTS examination. Because a lot of times as a student we prepare from an individual perspective. For instance, we look at the reading module, we look at the listening module, or even the writing module, but we never think about the final stage, that the day when you're going to take your IELTS exam, you have to manage those 2.5 hours. You have to understand how to divide your time really well. Because if you don't practice it, you might get anxious, you might panic a little, you might get nervous while you're taking your exam. So I hope this video will help. Let's get started. So, first of all, why time management is important? Definitely, to feel more confident, you should understand the skill of managing the time which you have. Now, your IELTS exam is strictly time based and you must complete all sections because you're not going to get any extra minute. So, make sure that you learn this skill. Now, it means that when you manage your time well, it means that you'll be finishing the test within time, so you might have some time to revise your answers as well. It keeps your stress levels low so that you have a plan in place and you won't feel nervous or anxious. And even if there's a difficult question in your test, make sure that you don't spend too much time on it so that you don't miss out the ones which you can easily crack. So that's why time management is the key for your IELTS examination. Now let's understand some tips for individual modules, that how you can manage your time. So when we look at the modules in the listening test, you know that you're going to get 40 minutes, where in 30 minutes you are going to listen to the audio, you're going to find your answers, and there are 10 minutes to transfer your answers. Now these 10 minutes, remember that these are there only in a pen and paper based test. In a computer based test, you do not get these extra 10 minutes. So you should always be familiar with the rules and restrictions. Now the reading module is for 60 minutes, and here there is no extra time to transfer your answers. So whichever questions you're solving, you have to consider your transferring of your answers within these 60 minutes. In case of a pen and paper, you'll get a separate answer sheet, but in case of a computer based, you have to fill in your answers on the screen itself. Now in the writing section, you're going to get 60 minutes and you have to solve two tasks which are present. Task 1, spend 20 minutes on it, and task 2, spend 40 minutes on this one. Now you should start with task 2 because it carries 66% of your overall weightage. We'll dig deeper into it when we'll be covering the specific module. And your speaking test, its duration is 11 to 14 minutes and it is held separately. So it can be either 2 to 3 days before or 2 to 3 days after your main test. In some cases, it might be on the same day as well. So it depends on the schedule which you receive from ITP. So an important point is that there is no break between your written test. So when you are taking your written test, listening, reading and writing, you have to be attentive, you have to build that focus, because for 2.5 hours you have to sit. So make sure that you increase your practice time whenever you sit for your practice. Now let's look at individual sections. Now when it comes to the listening module, now you need to understand and we need to play smart here. Now if you are not a beginner and you're practicing the listening section, you must know that there are some gaps between the recordings. For instance, if the recording of section 1 is done, you get 30 seconds to check your answers and then you move on to the next section. But if you are 100% sure about your answers for a particular section, so in those 30 seconds, do not waste your time and move on to the next section and read the next questions. This is going to help you to manage your time and build more focus if the next questions are tricky. Then be alert for changes in speakers and distractors. Now, whenever there are two speakers, it's easier for us to navigate through it because there's a change of dialogue. But when it's just one speaker, when it's a monologue, you have to be careful because the pace of the speaker can be fast, there can be distractions. So make sure that you underline your keywords when you're given the time to read the questions. So don't just read your questions, underline your keywords as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in computer based test, you won't get any extra time to transfer your answers. So fill them in as you go. Because if you don't fill them and later when the audio is done, then you think that okay, now I'll shift my answers. No, that's not going to happen. So you have to be very smart and active here. For pen and paper based, however, you have the last 10 minutes to transfer your answers accurately. So here you have to manage these 10 minutes. Now it won't take more than 5 minutes to shift your answers to your answer sheet, but utilize these 10 minutes because if you make a single mistake in shifting your answers, it can mess up all of your answers. So always check and then write your answer in the answer sheet. So those were the basic points for the listening section. Now when we get to the reading one, now this is a particular section where a lot of students face trouble because sometimes the passage can be so difficult, you might be stuck on any particular question and then you see the timer on the screen or in your area, and you get nervous that how clock is ticking and you're not able to move on to the next passage. So the very first point is that whenever you encounter a difficult question, if you're not able to solve it and it's been more than 5 minutes, let it go. Move on to the next question, and in the end, if you have time, come back to it. So don't feel stuck. Don't feel that I have to solve this question, then only I'll be able to move on to the next ones. No. If you feel it's very tricky, move on to the next one. Then you should follow these 3 simple steps to manage your time well. Now it is all based on how you level up your skills. So step 1 is to skim the passage quickly to understand the general idea. So here in step 1, you don't have to read word by word. You don't have to pay attention to each and every sentence. You just have to take an overview in just 1 to 2 minutes. Just take an overview that what this passage is about. Then your step 2 is to read the questions to understand what kind of information do you need to find. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, you will spend a lot of time aimlessly navigating through the passage. So make sure that you read the questions. Then step 3 is to scan the passage for relevant keywords that are going to answer your question. Now here you are going to use the skill of skimming, scanning, and even paraphrasing to some extent. That's why the reading module, I always say it's all about your skills. And even stay tuned because we are going to come up with a short course which is going to be based on skills rather than solving questions. We are going to focus on skills which are required in the IELTS examination. So I'll keep you posted about that. Then spend no more than 20 minutes per passage. Now you might be able to solve a passage in 15 minutes or in 20 minutes or even in 25 minutes, because sometimes I would say the passage where you have a longer question where you have to analyze all the paragraphs, that might take 25 minutes. Usually it contains questions of heading matching or information matching questions, and that's okay. You can take 25 minutes for that because there you have to read all the paragraphs and understand the main idea. But for the other 2 passages where you have true false not given, fill in the blanks, you do have the potential to solve those passages in 15 to 17 minutes. So always try to solve them under 20 minutes. Okay. Now, when we get to the writing section, now this is somewhere I have observed a lot of times that students come up and tell me that I could not write my essay, I could not finish 250 words because the time ran out, right? So, the very first thing which I always tell to all of my students is to start with task 2. Do not start your writing module with task 1. Always start with task 2 because it carries 66% of the weightage of your band score in the writing module. So it's really important that you finish the task 2. Even if you miss out a little bit on task 1, it won't impact your score that much as compared to if you miss out the word length in your task 2. So always begin with this. Now, in these 40 minutes, what you should do, plan in the very 5 minutes. In the very first 5 minutes, brainstorm your ideas, think about your structure, think about your body paragraphs. Then use 30 minutes to write the essay. Now, see, if you've brainstormed really well, then you don't have to stop and think what to write next. Then, in the last 5 minutes, use this time to revise. Revision is really important. Check your grammar, check your connectors, check your spellings, check if you want to replace any word with a better one, check if all of your punctuation is in place. So, revision plays a really important role. Then start your task 1 in the last 20 minutes. So, summarize and describe the graph or data. Again, spend 3 minutes to plan. Quickly, you can analyze the details which are there in the visual input. Then spend 15 minutes to write, and in the last 2 minutes, just revise. Now, the timing might be less for brainstorming and revising because here you have to write less amount of words, so it won't take you that long to check everything because it's just 150 words. Okay, so take care of these things. Then we have the speaking module. So in speaking module, I think time management comes in practice in your part 2, right? Because your part 1 and part 3 are to and fro communication with the examiner. You do have to bring a bit of quickness with your ideas, with answering the questions, and that always come with practice. So where time management comes in that 1 minute of preparation when you have to think about your answer. And we know that part 2 is really important. It's the major criteria which examiners look into while giving you the band score. So make sure that you use that 1 minute wisely. Do not write complete sentences because you won't be able to write 10 to 15 sentences in 1 minute. But what you can do is you can write 10 to 15 keywords. It can be vocabulary words, any idiom, any connector. Think about your main idea. Think about the pointers which are given to you. Make sure that you don't deviate your answers. And in the remaining time, you can even think, how will I start my answer? How will I end my answer? Always include an introduction and conclusion in the speaking part 2. So speak clearly, but don't rush. Sometimes we think that there's a lot of content and we just want to fill everything in those 2 minutes. But try to be clear, try to be precise, have a normal pace, modulate your speech so that you don't rush through the process. Then for part 1 and part 3, keep your answers sharp, to the point, and give the relevant details. Now, a few points before we wind up for today. So don't forget to always practice under timed conditions to simulate the real test scenarios. If you're sitting for writing test, put up a timer of 20 minutes for task 1, put up a timer of 40 minutes, or if you're solving them both of them together, then put up a timer of 60 minutes. Then prioritize your task. We talked about it a lot, that you should start with task 2 in the writing module. And don't get stuck on one question, move on and return if time permits. This is applicable for the reading module. In listening, you cannot do that because once the audio is gone, we cannot rewind it. So in listening, do make notes. If you feel that you zoned out for a bit and you missed out a question, move to the next one, focus on the next one, and later refer to your notes to make the most appropriate guess. Since there is no negative marking, so do not leave your answers empty. Always fill in with something. Then practice mock tests to identify areas where you can improve your timing. Once you'll give a complete mock test for 2.5 hours, then only you'll get to know that where you lost your answers. Did you lost your answers in reading? Did you run out of time in writing, or did you mess up in the listening? So do take mock tests because they're an important criteria which will help you with your timing. Lastly, I know it's a big deal, but try to stay calm, try to stay confident. If you'll practice the right way, nothing will go wrong. So always stay calm and focused, right? So that's basically what we did today. I really hope it was helpful and you got something valuable out of it. So, as a new channel, I would really recommend if you do like, share, or subscribe to it if you are a new user. And if you have any doubts related to IELTS, grammar, spoken English, do leave it in the comments. Thank you.